They promised performance, reliability, and value, but these motorcycles have become dealer dead weight. If you're thinking about riding, upgrading, or buying anytime soon, you need to see this, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which bikes to avoid before they leave you stranded with regret. Number 14. Yamaha Bolt R-Spec. It had the stance, the sound, and the swagger, just not the right badge for the audience it wanted to impress. The Bolt R-Spec came into the market swinging, with stripped-down styling and urban appeal aimed directly at riders who might otherwise swing a leg over a Harley. In terms of muscle, it delivered solid numbers: 53 horsepower from its 942 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin, along with 59 pound-feet of torque. It was fitted with disc brakes front and rear, twin piggyback shocks in the rear, and a telescopic fork up front. With a wet weight of 542 pounds and a low seat height of 27.2 inches, it was approachable, stable, and easy to manage. Priced at $8,899, it seemed like a no-brainer for entry-level cruiser fans. But the Bolt never quite earned its place in the garages of serious American riders. While it had character, it lacked the legacy and deep customization scene that gives bikes staying power. Harley owners weren't trading in their 883s, and younger buyers were more drawn to sport nakeds and adventure bikes. The Bolt's Japanese origin and limited aftermarket support made it feel more like a well-made impersonation than a new classic. It had all the right pieces, but none of the pull. That's exactly what Jason from Reno felt when he picked one up at 2017. It looked great on the lot, matte paint, nice lines, but after a few months, it just felt like I was riding something nobody else respected, he said. Parts were hard to get, and I was the only one in my group who wasn't on a Harley. I sold it for a loss and never missed it. Next up, we shift from urban cool to futuristic confusion, with a design that had no place to call home. Number 13. Honda NM4 Vultus. Sometimes a motorcycle shows up that feels like it belongs in a movie instead of a garage. The Vultus was Honda's bold attempt to blend futuristic design with cruiser comfort, but it ended up appealing to neither. Underneath the radical styling, it packed modest specs: 47 horsepower from a 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine with 44 pound-feet of torque. It featured disc brakes front and rear, a telescopic fork up front, and twin shocks in the rear. The bike had a wet weight of 560 pounds, a seat height of 25.6 inches, and a starting price of $11,299. The Vultus didn't whisper road trip, it shouted sci-fi cosplay. The forward foot controls and high bars created an awkward seating position that made longer rides uncomfortable. The automatic dual-clutch transmission delivered smooth shifts, but many riders missed the engagement of a true manual. Despite being approachable for newer riders, the design alone pushed away the traditional cruiser crowd. It had long bodywork, odd proportions, and the presence of something you might expect to see in a digital rendering rather than on a two-lane blacktop. Andre from Orlando thought he was getting ahead of the curve when he bought one. It turned heads everywhere, but not in a good way, he recalled. People thought it was a movie prop or an electric bike. The seating felt like I was sliding downhill, and I never felt fully in control. I kept it for 6 months and traded it in for a Rebel 1100. Best decision I made. As we move to the next entry, we shift from futuristic to functional, where solid engineering still wasn't enough to save it from showroom purgatory. If you've made it this far, chances are you've seen a bike that surprised you. Drop a comment below and let us know which one you've ridden or almost bought. And while you're at it, give this video a like. Number 12. Kawasaki Vulcan S. Not every motorcycle with good intentions earns respect from the cruiser crowd. The Vulcan S set out to bridge the gap between beginner-friendly performance and cruiser styling, but it never quite landed with either group. Beneath its streamlined tank sat a 649 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, making 61 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque. It featured disc brakes on both wheels, a telescopic front fork, and an offset rear monoshock. Wet weight came in at 498 pounds with a seat height of 27.8 inches. Starting price was $7,399. Despite the numbers and comfort-focused setup, seasoned riders found it lacking in personality. The smooth revving engine, borrowed from a sport platform, didn't have the low-end thump or lopey idle cruiser fans expect. Riders coming from Harley-Davidson models, especially the 883 or 120, described the experience as clinical, too quiet, too refined, and not visceral enough. Even with the adjustable Ergo Fit system, which allowed riders to tailor the handlebar, seat, and foot peg positions, the Vulcan S struggled to stir emotion. Leo from Sacramento gave it an honest shot. "It was fine. Nothing wrong with it," he said. "But after every ride, I felt like I'd just driven a toaster. No sound, no grit. My girlfriend joked it felt like a scooter cosplaying a cruiser." And she was right. I ended up selling it after a year for a used Dyna. When your bike leaves you stranded, your gear shouldn't. We linked gloves, jackets, and crash-tested essentials real riders still trust. Check the description before your next ride. Number 11. Suzuki Hayabusa. There was a time when this machine was the undisputed king of speed. In its latest generation, the Hayabusa still packs jaw-dropping performance. 187 horsepower from a 1,340 cubic centimeter inline four-cylinder engine producing 110 pound-feet of torque. It comes equipped with dual disc brakes with radial mount calipers, fully adjustable suspension front and rear, a wet weight of 564 pounds, and a seat height of 31.5 inches. Starting price is $18,500. For riders who grew up idolizing horsepower and straight-line acceleration, the Hayabusa was the dream. It dominated drag strips and highways alike, pushing into performance territory that few production motorcycles dared to explore. But as the market evolved, riders started looking for more versatile machines, ones that could carve corners, commute in traffic, and handle long-distance touring. The Hayabusa remained a specialized tool in an age where versatility sells. Heavy in traffic, overkill for daily riding, and costly to insure, it found itself appealing to a shrinking group of high-speed purists. Brent from Nashville had the poster on his wall as a teenager and finally bought one at 36. It was insane. "Fastest thing I've ever ridden," he admitted, but outside of open highways, it just didn't work. Maneuvering in traffic felt like dragging a barge. I barely rode it by year 2 and ended up trading it for a sport tourer. Still respect it, but it's not a daily bike. Next on the list is a race-bred machine that burned bright on the track, only to fizzle out when real-world practicality caught up with it. Number 10. Yamaha R6. Some motorcycles are built for the track, not the street, and the R6 proved that truth with every mile. Developed as a purpose-driven supersport machine, it brought screaming performance to riders who lived for redlines and apexes. Underneath its aggressive fairing sat a 600 cubic centimeter inline four-cylinder engine, making 123 horsepower and 42 pound-feet of torque. Braking came from dual front discs with radial mount calipers backed by a single rear disc. The suspension was fully adjustable both front and rear. Wet weight came in at 419 pounds with a seat height of 33.5 inches. The starting price was $12,299. There's no denying what the R6 did right. Its razor-sharp chassis and high-revving power band made it one of the most dominant middleweight sport bikes of its time. Track riders loved its commitment to speed, cornering, and control. But daily riders quickly found out it came at a cost. The ergonomics were punishing, the engine needed to be pushed hard to perform, and comfort was never part of the equation. As riding trends shifted toward versatility and real-world usability, the R6 found itself left behind. Marcos in El Paso said it best. "The R6 made me feel like Valentino Rossi for about 20 minutes. Then I'd hit city traffic and my wrist would feel like glass. I'm in my 40s now. I want thrills, not Tylenol. Great bike, wrong stage of life." Coming up next is a bike that tried to blend comfort and approachability, but ended up too soft to satisfy riders chasing either edge of the spectrum. Number 9. Honda CTX 700. Comfort without character can only take a motorcycle so far. The CTX 700 was designed for easygoing riders who valued accessibility over adrenaline, but it struggled to leave a lasting impression on the market. Power came from a 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, delivering 48 horsepower and 44 pound-feet of torque. It included disc brakes on both wheels, a telescopic front fork, and twin shock absorbers at the rear. Wet weight landed at 475 pounds. Seat height was a very approachable 28.3 inches, and its starting price was $7,699. The idea was to give new riders a cruiser-style machine that was forgiving and practical. With forward foot controls, a low seat, and available automatic dual-clutch transmission, the CTX 700 was built to welcome riders who might be intimidated by taller or more aggressive machines. But in chasing comfort, it left behind the visual and mechanical traits that define cruiser appeal. There was no throaty exhaust note, no aggressive stance, and no sense of raw pull that veteran riders expect from their bikes. That lack of identity is exactly what turned off Clara from Phoenix. "I bought the CTX after a knee injury. I wanted something easy to handle," she explained. "And it was, but it was also boring. I missed the roar, the presence, the feeling of riding something alive. I ended up giving it to my nephew and bought a used Shadow Phantom instead." Next up is a machine that tried to rewrite the cruiser playbook with sport bike roots and ended up leaving both audiences confused. Number 8, Honda DN01. It looked like something out of a concept garage and rode like it didn't know what it wanted to be. The DN01 was one of the most unusual motorcycles ever put into production, and the market never quite figured out where it fit. Power came from a 680 cubic centimeter V-twin engine, producing 61 horsepower and 47 pound-feet of torque. Braking was handled by a full disc setup with dual front calipers and a single rear disc, paired with a combined braking system and optional anti-lock braking system. It featured a unique human-friendly automatic transmission, a low-slung suspension setup, a wet weight of 595 pounds, a seat height of 27.2 inches, and a starting price of $15,599. The goal was to combine the smoothness of a scooter with the presence of a cruiser and the style of a sport bike. Instead, it ended up confusing riders from all three camps. Its transmission removed any feeling of engagement for experienced riders, while its size and price made it unappealing for beginners. The styling, sweeping lines, oversized fairings, and a stretched profile may have looked striking, but it did little to help its handling or cornering clearance. John from Minneapolis tried to love it. "I like the idea of something futuristic and weird," he said, "but the automatic felt numb. The handling was vague, and at that price, I kept asking myself why I didn't just get a gold wing or a proper cruiser. It was cool to look at. For a month." Next, we move from radical to retro, a machine that chased heritage styling but got caught between two worlds with no clear identity. Number 7. Honda CB 1100. Some motorcycles aim to capture the past, but not every throwback strikes gold. The CB 1100 was built as a tribute to Honda's golden era machines, with timeless looks and a smooth, reliable ride. But nostalgia alone wasn't enough to move units. It produced 89 horsepower from an 1148 cubic centimeter air-cooled inline four-cylinder engine with 66 pound-feet of torque. The braking system used dual front discs and a single rear disc with optional anti-lock braking system. It rode on conventional twin shocks and a telescopic front fork. Wet weight sat at 578 pounds. Seat height was 31.3 inches, and the starting price came in at $12,399. Riders who grew up in the 70s and 80s appreciated its round headlamp, analog dials, and chrome detailing. It had the right stance and an unmistakably vintage silhouette. But while the CB 1100 was styled for the past, it lacked the raw energy and character that made old-school machines memorable. The ride was refined and quiet, almost too polite for a segment where visceral feedback and torque-laden pull are part of the charm. Dan from Columbus rode one for 2 years. It reminded me of my old CB 750 from college, but where that bike had soul, the CB 1100 just felt sterile. It was smooth, almost too smooth, like riding a time machine that didn't want to go anywhere in a hurry. Coming up next is a machine that looked built for battle, marketed for the city, and somehow ended up nowhere at all. It had attitude, but never gained traction. Number 6. Kawasaki Z125 Pro. Bigger isn't always better, but smaller still has to make sense. The Z125 Pro hit the market during the height of the mini bike craze, aimed squarely at riders who wanted a fun, flickable machine for tight urban streets. It produced 9 horsepower from a 125 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine with 7 pound-feet of torque. Braking was handled by single-disc brakes at both ends, and suspension came from an inverted front fork and a rear monoshock. The wet weight was 224 pounds with a seat height of 31.7 inches. Starting price was $3,599. On paper, the Z125 Pro had the basics nailed down. It was light, easy to throw around, and had the bones of a great city bike. But where its main rival, the Honda Grom, built a passionate following through viral culture, customization, and an enthusiastic aftermarket scene, the Z125 Pro fell short. Its styling was more conventional, and it lacked the charm and community that drove the mini bike wave in the first place. That lack of identity hit hard for Jacob in San Diego. I wanted something fun to zip around town, and the Z125 seemed like a deal, but nobody else had one. No meetups, no mods, no hype. I felt like I bought the knockoff version of the Grom. I rode it for a summer and then sold it for a loss. What comes next is a motorcycle that should have been a touring dream, on paper, but ended up stuck between too edgy and not refined enough to claim its place on the road. Number 5. Yamaha FJ-09. Touring riders want versatility, but they also need a motorcycle to know what it is. The FJ-09 came out swinging with sporty DNA and touring ambitions, but it never fully delivered on either front. It produced 115 horsepower from an 847 cubic centimeter inline 3-cylinder engine, along with 65 pound-feet of torque. Braking was handled by dual front discs and a single rear disc, and the suspension included an inverted telescopic fork and rear monoshock. It had a wet weight of 462 pounds, a seat height of 32.1 inches, and a starting price of $10,490. On paper, the FJ-09 looked like a smart solution. It borrowed its engine and chassis from the MT-09 and added upright ergonomics, selectable riding modes, a 5-gallon tank, and available factory luggage. But it sat in an awkward position between categories. Sport bike riders turned away from the taller stance and soft touring touches. Long-distance riders, on the other hand, questioned its short windscreen, chain drive, and limited wind protection. Throttle response in early models was abrupt, and the stock seat left much to be desired on longer trips. While the engine was punchy, the overall package lacked the refinement that seasoned tourers expect. And with adventure bikes rising in popularity, the FJ-09 struggled to define itself. Steve from Charlotte summed it up best. The engine was a blast, but the bike never knew what it wanted to be. The seat was uncomfortable on long rides, and it vibrated like crazy at highway speeds. It was too aggressive for touring and too soft for sport riding. I ended up switching to a V-Strom 1000 and never looked back. Now let's shift gears to a once-beloved beginner bike that helped thousands learn, but couldn't keep up with the next generation. Number 4. Kawasaki Ninja 250. Some bikes earn their reputation by being the first choice for new riders, but that only works until the competition catches up. The Ninja 250 held that beginner bike crown for years, offering a forgiving platform for entry-level riders. It made 29 horsepower from a 248 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine and delivered 18 pound-feet of torque. Braking came from a single disc at the front and rear with basic hydraulic calipers. Suspension included a telescopic fork and twin rear shocks. Wet weight came in at 375 pounds with a seat height of 29.3 inches. When new, it was priced at $4,499. The appeal was obvious. It was light, simple, and easy to maintain, perfect for learning the ropes without breaking the bank. It handled well enough around town and offered just enough grunt for highway speeds if you pushed it hard. But over time, the Ninja 250 started to show its age. Its carbureted fueling system became a drawback in an era of fuel injection, requiring more maintenance and less consistent cold starts. Ruben from Des Moines started out on one and quickly felt its limitations. I was excited. It was my first bike, but after a few weeks it felt underpowered. I had to wring the throttle just to stay at highway speed, and every winter the carb would act up. I upgraded to a Ninja 400 and realized how far behind the 250 had fallen. Next, we turned to a machine that promised low-end torque and urban grit, but ran into the immovable wall of American loyalty and cruiser tradition. Number 3. Kawasaki W800. It looked like it was built for the cover of a classic motorcycle magazine, sleek tank lines, chrome mirrors, and that unmistakable vintage silhouette. But somewhere between styling and substance, the W800 lost the crowd it was trying to win. While it aimed to revive the soul of motorcycling's golden era, it struggled to connect with riders who actually lived through it. The W800 produced 47 horsepower from a 773 cubic centimeter air-cooled vertical twin engine, along with 46 pound-feet of torque. Bikes that offered rider modes, fuel mapping, and serious torque for about the same money. What the W800 had was nostalgia, but nostalgia only works when the ride matches the memory. While the engine was smooth and the ride pleasant, the throttle response and power delivery left many riders feeling like the bike was all show, no go. Brian from Tulsa summed up the experience with quiet disappointment. "It was beautiful. I parked it in the driveway just to look at it. But no one ever asked me about it. At the diner, at the gas station, nothing. It didn't rumble, didn't pull, didn't say anything when it rolled by. After a year, I realized I didn't just want to ride, I wanted to feel something. I traded it for a low-mileage cruiser with some attitude, and I haven't looked back." The next machine on this list promised low-end torque and urban grit, but ran headfirst into the brick wall of American tradition and loyalty. Number 2. Honda Grom. A motorcycle doesn't need size to make an impact, but staying relevant takes more than novelty. The Grom stormed the market with its playful personality and miniature proportions, quickly gaining a cult following. It delivered 9 horsepower from a 125 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine and 8 pound-feet of torque. Braking was managed by a single disc front and rear with hydraulic calipers. Suspension came from an inverted front fork and a single rear shock. The wet weight measured 227 pounds, the seat height was 30 inches even, and the starting price was $3,599. The original Grom became an instant hit when it launched. It was easy to ride, easy to park, and perfect for urban streets or college towns. Riders loved its charm and its accessibility, making it a favorite among younger riders and experienced bikers who just wanted something fun and different in the garage. But as newer versions hit the scene with modern styling, improved fuel injection, and better lighting and braking, the first-generation Grom started to feel like yesterday's toy. Dealers found themselves holding older inventory as buyers gravitated toward more refined options. Even among many bike fans, the earlier Groms lost their shine. The aftermarket support and social appeal moved with the newer models, leaving the original stuck in neutral. Kevin from Portland bought his Grom in 2016. "Man, it was fun. I even did a wheelie once, accidentally," he laughed. "But once the new models came out, everyone moved on. My Grom looked dated fast. No ABS, no LED, and it just didn't get attention anymore. I sold it to a college kid and put the cash toward a Z400. Before we hit number 1, make sure you're subscribed. We break down the truth behind the machines, the myths, and the marketing. Stick with us, because the next bike we're covering might be parked in your garage right now. Number 1. Suzuki Boulevard C50. Dependable, approachable, and nearly invisible on the sales floor. The Boulevard C50 had all the markings of a solid entry-level cruiser, but for riders chasing heritage, power, and pride of ownership, it just didn't stick. Power came from an 805 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled V-twin engine, delivering 45 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque. It featured disc braking up front with a drum brake in the rear, traditional telescopic front forks, and dual rear shocks. Wet weight measured 611 pounds, seat height came in at 27.6 inches, and the starting price was $9,299. On paper, the Boulevard C50 made sense. Shaft drive kept maintenance low, the low seat helped newer riders feel confident, and the engine had just enough grunt for casual cruising. The styling leaned classic with a teardrop tank, chrome touches, and a laid-back geometry. But in a segment where image and loyalty run deep, it wasn't enough to sway buyers from more iconic names. Jake from Amarillo put it this way: "It rode fine. No issues, no surprises, but that was the problem. It didn't excite me. I'd pull into a bike night and people wouldn't even look at it. Meanwhile, a guy on a beat-up dyno was getting high fives. I wanted something that felt like mine. The C50 never did." Seasoned riders look to Harley-Davidson's 883 or Indian Scout series, bikes with deeper roots, stronger resale, and more customization potential. Meanwhile, the Boulevard's sound, performance, and overall presence just felt watered down. It was dependable, but forgettable. That's a hard position to sell in a market built on passion. If you made it to the end, you're not just a rider, you're the kind who does their homework. Now it's your turn. Hit that subscribe button for more real talk on the bikes that matter. Share this with a friend who's shopping and drop your take in the comments.